Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the panel discussion, Women Leading Progress, Water and Sustainable Development Goals. As the Association of Swiss Women in Empowerment, we are very proud to co-organize this discussion with the United Nations Office at Geneva and the General Women's Union. Today, the panelists are Her Excellency, Mrs. Tatiana Valovaya, First Woman Director General of the United Nations Office at Geneva. Second panelist is Her Excellency Leila Alieva, Head of Heydar Aliyev Foundation and founder of IDEA Campaign. Welcome. Her Excellency Dr. Mariam Al-Shehi, visiting scholar at MIT and assistant professor at Khalifa University. Welcome. Please take your seat. The panel will be moderated by Mrs. Shama Al-Bastaki. Please have your seat. I will now let the floor to them.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today in this panel titled Water and Sustainable Development Goals. I am very pleased to be welcoming our wonderful panelists and our wonderful audience today, where we will be discussing the pressing issue of water management. We will be examining its implications on communities and ecosystems. And as we know, COP28 announced water as one of its pressing issues and top priority areas, including conserving and restoring freshwater ecosystems, enhancing urban water resilience, and bolstering water-resilient food systems. And thus, in this discussion, we will think through some inclusive and informed solutions for sustainable water management, by highlighting interconnections between water issues, sustainable development goals, and gender equality. And without further ado, I would like to thank our wonderful panelists for being here with us today and with our audience. Is the mic okay? Okay. Your Excellency, Ms. Valovaya, I would like to start with you. As the first Woman Director General of the United Nations Office in Geneva, how do you see the United Nations playing a role in integrating water management with multiple sustainable development goals beyond SDG 6, which is clean water and sanitation, and in particular with SDG 5, which is gender equality? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And for me, it's a great pleasure to be here for this panel discussion with such esteemed speakers. And I would like to thank everybody who really worked hard to organize this very important event as a side event of COP28. And I think the topic of this event is crucial. I would like to start, before directly answering your questions, I would like to start with some facts and figures to explain why I really think it's a very important event. We know from the statistics that even today, 3.6 billion of people living on Earth have problems with access to clean water at least for a month a year. Just think, it's practically half of the humanity. By 2050, there are estimates that the number of these people will reach up to 5 billion people, enormous figure. We also know that in majority of natural disasters, practically 3/4 of natural disasters are water-related. Floods, droughts, etc. That's on the one hand, the problem with the access to clean water. On the other hand, we have to think who is the first to suffer through it and who is the first to bear a burden of it. We all know that, for example, in the countries, in the communities where there are problems with access to clean water, and we remember it's half of the humanity, 80% of people who are responsible for providing water are women and girls. These are girls and women who have a task every day to bring water to their households. Quite often they have to travel long distances, not always safe distances with the possibility for violence. They have to carry very heavy loads. And of course, taking care of their families or their communities means that they do not have time to go to school, to do other things, to earn their income. 80% of women. Another fact which shows why clean water and women are so interlinked, we all know that the key sector which needs clean water is agriculture. And who works in the agriculture? In Asia, 43% of people working in the agriculture are female workers. In Africa, 47%. And in principle, 1/4 of women who are working in the agriculture. So that really shows that the women are the key actors when we speak about clean water. They work with water every day. They also suffer the first if there is no water, and of course they have lots of experience. But when it comes to negotiations on water, we do not have enough female faces around, and our panel discussion is a very pleasant case when we do have female leaders speaking, but it's not always the case. And at the same time, we all know that it's important to involve women into discussions. Again, there is a very interesting statistics. United Nations have looked at the past conflicts over the last 40 years, and we all saw that when women participated in negotiating the solutions for the conflicts, negotiating peace and reconciliation agreements, these agreements lasted longer, were much more sustainable. That shows how important it's to involve women in negotiations, in decision-making. And speaking about what United Nations is doing about it, well, you all know the position of the United Nations Secretary General, who is a person who is really fighting for equality between men and women. He is always reminding us how important it is to have parity at all the levels. You said that I am the first woman Director General of Office in Geneva, but we also have first women in many other institutions of the United Nations. Why? Because it was decided, and we already reached our goal, that at the level of the management of the organization, we have a parity between men and women. And that helps us to make better and wiser decisions. We are very happy that in 2016, General Assembly unanimously, that's very, very important, adopted a special declaration pronouncing the decade of 2018-2028 as a water action decade. And in March this year, we had the first midterm water summit, the first for the generation. And that's where we are now assessing this so-called integrated water resource management system. And we're very happy that there is a huge success. Practically more than 40 countries, 44 countries to be exact, made a very significant progress. Another 22 are really approaching. But at the same time, these countries are just the third of the member states. That's why it's very, very important to put water into the center of our agenda, be it economic growth or sustainable development or protection of the climate. I think I will stop here for the time being. I would be very happy to go on further.
Thank you, Director General, for that illuminating response. I love what you said about putting women at the center, at the core of these various intersecting elements, and it seeps into conversations about inclusivity as well, right, and gender inclusivity. And I would like to turn the conversation to you, Your Excellency, Mrs. Alieva, with your leadership in the Haidar Aliyev Foundation. How do you see the intersections between water management and climate change? And how can integrated approaches address both challenges, particularly in the context of Azerbaijan, if you may comment on that?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, dear moderator. So I would speak a little bit about Azerbaijan. In Azerbaijan, most of our territory of the rivers is transboundary. Kura, Samur, and Araz. And we have witnessed that the level of these rivers is, the water in the rivers is going down due to climate change. And also the water in the river Volga is going down, which affects the Caspian Sea. And in the past 7 years, we have experienced droughts in Azerbaijan, which really affects the productivity of agriculture. Now the government is planning to place 10 water reservoirs around the country, so this will hopefully solve this problem. Another thing is that, unfortunately, for the last 30 years, we have been deprived of the access to our water in the occupied territories. 20% of our land was under the occupation. So after the liberation of our territories, we gained access to the water reserves in Karabakh and eastern Zangezur. And this is more than 25% of the all water reserves in Azerbaijan. And now the government is trying to sustainably manage water, that there's enough drinking water and for irrigation in the country. And also in the past 20 years, for unknown reasons, we have noticed that the Caspian Sea, the level of the water in Caspian Sea is dropping. And probably this is due to natural causes, but the eco-balance in the Caspian Sea is changing, and this is a big concern for us. Yes. Also, it affects the fish, especially Caspian sturgeon and the Caspian salmon. But we hope that this will improve by itself. If not, then we will have to think of solution for this. As for our organization, IDEA, International Dialogue for Environmental Action, we implement many projects to raise awareness among youth and in schools, universities in general, so that the public can just be more aware of how important the water is. We started a project called One Drop, which shows how every drop wasted can save somebody's life. And I think the main thing is that what we can do, what I can do, what you can do, is that every individual on everyday actions, activities, just remembers when we leave a tap open for more time, or when we don't finish our drinking water, we just remember how important it is. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for sharing. And indeed, it is the smallest actions that have the bigger impact, and it really goes down to the very detail. Thank you for that illuminating response. Dr. Shahi, I would like to ask you, as a visiting scholar at MIT and an assistant professor at Khalifa University, what key lessons have emerged from water management initiatives in the UAE since the adoption of the Sustainable Development Agenda? And how have these lessons informed current strategies and policies, if you may illuminate on that?
Sure, thank you, Shamma. Good morning, everyone. I am very happy to be here today and contribute in this panel with this esteemed panel ladies over here. So coming back to the question of Shamma, so what lessons we have learned so far about the water management in the UAE? So basically, I can shed light on three main lessons that we have learned. So the first one basically is the importance of the integration of the water management system. For example, thinking about a holistic approach, looking at the source of water, consumption, treatment, and reuse. So this is the first lesson that we need to focus on to improve the water management in the UAE. The second lesson is the importance of data. So we need to have up-to-date information about the current situation of water in the UAE so that we understand the challenges and we try to improve the water management system in the country. So let me give you an example. For example, we need to understand how much is the water consumption at different water sectors in the UAE. Also, the water quality in the UAE should be recorded over time from the past to the current scenario so that we understand the real situation and challenges we may face in the current situation and also in the future. The third lesson that I can shed light on is the importance of engaging the community in the water management plans. So you can see that the communities, they are the main contributor to the water consumption. So involving them in the water management will be playing a crucial role in improving the water management in the UAE. So based on these lessons, the UAE has taken a step further and they have implemented several projects that can improve the water management system. So the first water management project that comes to my mind is the treated sewage water in Abu Dhabi. So nowadays, Abu Dhabi is trying to treat the sewage water not to the level of removing the minimum pollution from the water, but rather improving the quality of the treated water to be used in agriculture and also in irrigation of farms in the UAE that can support the food security. So that is one example. Another project is to support the desalination plant, which is a major source of fresh water in the UAE, using renewable energy. So we have recently launched the Noor project, Noor Solar Energy Desalination Project, to desalinate the water, and it is the largest renewable energy desalination plant in the UAE. Another project is on Abu Dhabi tunneling strategy to improve the infrastructure and the roads and the tunnels so that it can compensate the floods if it happens in the UAE and there is, for example, convective rain. So we can manage the sewage and treat those water coming to the ground and could be useful in irrigation in the UAE. So I think those are the main lessons and also projects that we have worked on in the UAE so far. Yeah.
Thank you. Very fascinating. Thank you for sharing, Dr. Al-Shehi. And I would like to turn back to Director General Ms. Valovaya, Your Excellency, and ask, in your view, how does sustainable water management contribute to economic growth? So looking at the economic angle, and what economic considerations should be factored into water-related policies to ensure long-term prosperity? And if possible, also to perhaps elaborate on the role of multilateral partnerships within the broader discussion.
Thank you. It's a very important question because exactly today, economists and political leaders, those who work for sustainable development, are always talking about the necessity to rethink the concept of economic growth. And that has a clear relationship with, for example, with use of resources and first and foremost water. Water is an invaluable resource, but it's not limited. But the traditional concept of economic growth is not really sustainable. Because the concept of the economic growth, you have to produce more, you have to consume more, and that shows in good economic indicators. You have GDP growth, you have less problems with unemployment, you have better economic and social statistics. But this concept of economic growth is unsustainable. That's why we are talking and we are doing a lot for this in Geneva. We are thinking beyond 2030. We are thinking how to turn sustainable development goals into mainstream beyond 2030. And that makes us thinking how really we should use the resources to promote the economic growth. Take water. As I say, it's a resource which can be used differently. It can be used for drinking, it can be used for agriculture, it can be used for producing electrical energy, it can be used for industry purposes, and it's very, very important to understand how we prioritize the use of limited resources. And here, of course, multilateral partnerships are very, very important. We, United Nations, we already have a Convention on Trans-Border, Trans-Frontier Water Resources, because it's clear that in many parts of the world, the political conflicts have water in their center. Many regions in Asia, in Middle East, in Africa, and many other, they have permanent conflicts between neighboring countries, and the major issue is the access to water. Because if you have two countries which share the water, and one wants to use water purely for producing electrical energy, that might result as a neighboring country not having enough water for agriculture. And the number of conflicts like that is growing. So we really need to have a multilateral partnerships to manage water resources. But at the same time, we have to anticipate the future. Because again, the role of diplomacy is to build up understanding on the problems and looking for multilateral solutions. We all already understand that if you have, for example, Caspian Sea and you have 5 neighboring countries, they have to agree on terms how to use the water resources of the sea. If you have a river, like Nile River, you need the agreement of the countries. But let's think, well, maybe 10 years from now. I'm absolutely sure that in 2040 we'll already have, rather effective technologies which would allow us, for example, to stop the cloud and to make it rain in this correct region without thinking about the neighboring regions or neighboring countries. Can you imagine the political results of such technologies being used without multilateral framework? They're disastrous. Now it's time to start thinking about it, because water is not only the water in the rivers, in the lakes, it's also in our atmosphere. And we do not have any multilateral, clear partnership or agreement looking for the future. Or water from the ocean. Again, the majority of the ocean is not belonging to national countries. We all can use water in the ocean. And we do not have enough multilateral framework. So it's time to work very seriously to see what kind of economic growth we want, we need. And there are many very concrete issues. For example, if we are talking in women and water, for example, we all know how unsustainable fashion can be. That's why, for example, in the United Nations Office in Geneva, we work a lot for sustainable fashion. Because if you minimize the use of water for producing fast fashion, you can really find solution for many, many issues. And here we really need a women's voice, because that's something which really we can explain, we can promote, and we can show an example. So really, economic growth, use of water, and multilateral diplomacy, which is anticipating the future possible conflicts, is something we have to discuss today.
Thank you very much for sharing. And it's really fascinating how you speak looking to the future of more multilateral relationships in solidifying the importance of water management. And I would like to shift the conversation to Your Excellency, Mrs. Alieva, and to ask about your involvement in the IDEA campaign.
Yes, IDEA campaign has been established in 2011, and for the past 12 years we have implemented many projects and achieved positive results. Our main goal is to raise awareness, especially among the youth, and our activities start from conservation, global warming, and pollution and sustainability. And one of our top priorities is endangered species of animals. We've done a lot of work to protect the Caucasian leopard and the Caspian sturgeon. And also we do activities like planting 10 million trees in Azerbaijan. And cleaning the beaches, making documentaries, lectures at schools, universities, and whatever we do, we try to make everyone involved in a specific action because it's you feel it much more if you go to the nature and if you clean the beach with your own hands or if you plant a tree with your own hands, you feel the magic of how magical it feels to do something for our planet. And also today we're very concerned about the food waste. It is heartbreaking to see that in the 21st century, there are still people who are starving in the world. So we would really appreciate if we can maybe do some joint projects or something in that. IDEA supports vulnerable communities by itself, but I think if we participate in the bigger joint projects, we can do it at a bigger scale. Yes.
Thank you for sharing. And my final question is for you, Dr. Al-Shehi. Looking forward, what are the key challenges and opportunities that you foresee for further advancing sustainable water management in the UAE? And what recommendations would you offer for future strategies and initiatives?
Okay. So regarding the challenges that we face in the UAE, so the first challenge, basically we are living in the Middle East in a very arid region. So we do have a water scarcity problem, so we do have very limited water resources. So the major water resource now in the UAE is from the desalination plants, and it is just using the seawater to be treated and then to be supplied to the country. The second water supply is from the groundwater, which is also depleting, and it suffers from the salinization problem. So there is an increase of salinity levels in the groundwater. So we need to tackle this challenge of looking for alternative technologies to look for different ways of harvesting the water in the UAE. For example, in Masdar company now, they are running a new project on harvesting the water from the humid air. So, which is a very good project on getting water from different sources. The second project on innovative water harvesting is through cloud seeding, which is running now by the NCM, National Meteorological Center in Abu Dhabi. So this is the first challenge that we have is the water scarcity. The second challenge is the climate change impact. So we do have the increase of temperature and irregular water patterns, of course, affect the water resources in the UAE. And the third challenge, basically, as I have mentioned earlier, we rely heavily on the desalination plants, and it is energy intensive. So it affects the energy-water nexus. So in this case, instead of relying on the conventional ways to generate energy and use it in the desalination plants, we need to look for alternative ways of renewable energy that could be used in desalinating the water in the UAE. So in terms of the recommendations of opportunities, we need to focus more on the innovative and new technologies to get new resources of water. The second part is also building the local capacity and training the people in the UAE to improve their water management here. That is the second opportunity. The third opportunity, for example, enhancing the international collaboration with other countries that could share with us their best practices that we can apply here in the UAE. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. And that goes into many things that we touched in this conversation, including inclusivity and gender and collaboration, community, research and development, and so that's wonderful. And perhaps a question for any of our panelists, anyone who would like to respond. And this is a question on inclusivity and fostering inclusive solutions. And so I'm wondering, in fostering inclusive solutions, how can policies address the needs of vulnerable and marginalized communities, ensuring that no one is left behind in the pursuit of sustainable water management?
Well, maybe I'll start with answering the question. Again, reminding the statistics that half of the humanity, 3.6 billion of people, have limited access to water, to clean water, at least 1 month a year. So really there are lots of communities around the world where people do not have access to water every day. And again, the women and girls are the first to suffer the burn. So we really need inclusive approach. We need to include everybody in making the decisions, because it's very, very important to understand that maybe for one village, it's crucial to have water for agricultural purposes. But there is a village next to it which uses water for producing handicrafts. For example, for dyeing silk or something, they need lots of water. Then there is a community not far from it which, for example, constructed a small electric power station which produces energy for this, or having, producing some materials. And how to make a decision about this use of water without inclusivity, without listening to all these communities. Because, for example, the production of agriculture might be huge, and the production of silk might be very small. And if you are making decisions like that, judging by figures, you say, okay, we'll use the water for agriculture, it's crucial, but the rest, well, we'll see. It's a wrong way to make business decisions. You really need to include all the representatives, because we are all sure that if we work together, we'll be able to find a balanced solution. But you really have to include everybody, really not leaving anybody behind when you make such decisions.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment on that?
I can add one point. So I think it's a good idea to educate the communities and increase the awareness of the importance of water management and how can they prioritize the water so they don't use it for, let's say, secondary usage or applications while focusing on the primary use of water. So this could be done by educating them and creating some sort of awareness to our communities. Yeah.
Absolutely. Education plays a big part in this discussion, I'm sure, and inclusivity is part of the reason why I guess events or spaces like the COP28 are important, to have these sorts of conversations and to have people from all walks of life and who have experienced water in many different ways and aspects, and to bring everyone to the table, like you were saying, Your Excellency, to make these decisions and to be part of these negotiations. And are there any last remarks that any of our panelists would like to make before we wrap up?
I think, as we said, it's not as much as we take as much as we waste. Yes, so maybe it would be good to start with schools. And I don't know, news, or that every person every day just is aware of food and water each one of us wastes a day. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our wonderful panelists for this fascinating discussion on water management, sustainable development goals, and gender equality. It was an absolute pleasure, and I believe they're about to take a photo of us, so if everyone can pose for a second.